Welcome to the Safety and Risk Success podcast with me, Christian Harris. Today, we're venturing into a new but increasingly vital territory for the podcast, cybersecurity. Not just as a technical issue, but as a human one. Joining me is Jane Frankland, MBE, one of the world's leading voices in cybersecurity, a best-selling author, advisor, and founder of the Insecurity Movement. Jane's journey into the field is fascinating. It began with love and James Bond, as she'll tell us about shortly, and today she helps global leaders understand how to protect their people, operations, and reputation from the ever-growing cyber threat. We'll be discussing what recent high-profile hacks like Marks & Spencer and Jaguar Land Rover reveal about the evolving risk landscape, why resilience is more realistic than 100% security, and what every leader should be doing right now to prepare for the inevitable. It's an eye-opening conversation with plenty of lessons that apply far beyond the cyber world, particularly for anyone leading safety, risk, or business continuity. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Safety and Risk Success podcast with Christian Harris. We believe that proactive safety and risk management powers business performance. Each week, we explore this theme, sharing guests, stories, insights, trends, hints, and tips. You can find us on all the major podcasting platforms, and video versions are available on YouTube. But for now, let's join the conversation with Christian.
So thank you for joining us today on this Safety Roundtable session, covering a topic that we haven't really touched upon before, but is very, very topical, as we'll hear about. And I'm really delighted to have such a fantastic guest today as Jane Frankland, who is super well known in this area. And I'll ask her to share her story in a minute. As always, very happy to have interaction, questions, comments. So if you want to ask Jane a question about this very important and pressing topic, then if you're on the Zoom with us, go to reactions, raise your hand, and we'll come and you can come and say hello to Jane and myself and come and have a chat with us. And if you are on the replay, or if you are following this live, if the live stream's working, then fire away in the chat and I will ask the questions to Jane as well. So let me stop sharing. Jane, thank you for joining us today.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
I'm just going to highlight you. Yeah, perfect. There you go. You came up well. So let's start at the beginning. You said to me when we were chatting that love and James Bond played a role in getting you into the world of cybersecurity. So tell us that story.
Yeah, it's true. It's so true. People always ask me this one. Yeah, I mean, my background is art and design. So I trained as a woven textile designer. That's what I'm qualified in. But after graduating, I worked as a successful freelance designer. Actually, I had an agent. I was selling work all over the world in New York, like Tokyo, LA, etc., etc. And but although it sounded really glamorous, and I was lucky enough to get an agent, the work actually was very temperamental. I didn't know when I was actually going to be paid. It was all going through an agent and things like that. I was a single parent, and it wasn't the best way to actually kind of raise a son. It was very, very stressful. And so somebody said, look, you've got a good brain. It's time to like call you out a day and go and get a proper job. So I went and retrained. I retrained as a high-tech. I mean, this is the name it was called. It was called a high-tech secretary, because I thought, well, I had no skills. So I'll go and get an office job and I'll figure it out and I'll work my way up doing something, but didn't know what. So I did that. I came top of my class, and then I went to sign up with an agency, and they turned around and said, look, come and work for us as a recruiter. An accountancy recruiter, actually. So very, very different from art and design, but thank goodness for that, because it really taught me how to build a business. You know, it wasn't just a case of how to sell, and I was very anti-selling. I was an artist. I'm an introvert, and I categorically said I didn't want to do that. So anyway, round about that time, I met my new boyfriend, fell in love. He was a techie, and then after about a year of doing well in that job and having a whole career mapped out for me, if I wanted it, he said, "Do you want to go and start a business together?" So that's how I kind of got into IT. And then because I didn't know anything about about IT or
Mm.
tech, I suggested we start with security because security to me sounded far more interesting than selling routers or high availability servers, which is what we also did when we first started. And I thought it sounded a little bit like James Bond. So that's kind of like where the Bond, yeah, kind of connection comes in. Obviously, it's not like Bond, not the work that I do anyway.
Very good. I've got some social media posts of me sort of mocked up as Daniel Craig in James Bond with no time to slip rather than no time to die. So
Very
uh, we've got
good.
the we've got the Bond thing
Yeah,
going on.
that's really
Yeah. Just like your world wasn't actually James Bond. I'm sorry to say that I don't actually look anything like Daniel Craig, particularly if I took my shirt off. But we'll leave that for another day. Uh, was there a particular moment or incident or sort of light bulb or something like that that shifted your focus away from the kind of technical world of cybersecurity into the kind of human and cultural dimensions that you talk a lot about now?
No, I mean, I've always been interested in people.
Hmm.
Um, and like really when I started my first consultancy, that was all about ethical hacking. So
Yeah.
we were going in and breaking into companies like Marks and Spencer's or Barclays Bank and like lots of the betting companies, lots of the insurance companies, like loads of them. We were one of the very few that did actually do that. Literally, there were probably about a handful, and certainly my company was the first female-owned company. Might be in the world. It's definitely in the UK, but it could be in the world because I'm a pioneer. So for me, I'd always been interested in people, but the field was so much smaller when I first started, and
Hmm.
it's grown. It's become so much more diverse. I mean, if I think about ethical hacking, which we called security assessments or penetration testing, if I'm being really technical,
Yeah.
security assessments, that is. Um, we still did things like social engineering, which is really working on the people side of things. How can we get into that company really using any means possible, whether it's like going through bins, whether it's tricking someone on the phone, which is a technique that's used a lot at the moment.
Hmm.
We've got lots of high profile hacks like Marks and Spencer's and Jaguar Land Rover, et cetera, using those types of attacks to get in. So
Yeah.
it wasn't anything in particular. It's just always been there. But now I get to kind of choose what I focus on as opposed to working with a business partner and us kind of determining this is the specialism that we kind of want to focus on. So it really is a case of having those things and also the market evolving. Now it's so diverse.
Hmm.
Whereas then it was much more simple because in 1997 websites were pretty new, mobile phones were pretty new, email was pretty new.
Yeah.
Whereas we have a much bigger attack surface and we have much more technology than ever we did before then. So it's really a case of the market evolving and me deciding what interests me the most. And what you will find a lot of technical people actually are drawn to the human side. I
Hmm.
know so many technical people, and it's just like this bit really interests me. It's
Yeah.
quite funny, really, when you think about it.
Yeah. No, but it does make sense, doesn't it? That really tech's an enabler for humans, so it should be,
Yeah,
and therefore there's always a human sort of sitting behind all of this stuff. So yeah, it kind of makes sense logically from
yeah,
that perspective. So you
yeah.
mentioned a couple of the sort of prominent cases recently that have been, taking front pages, if people read newspapers anymore, but or top of the page on online news sites. Which of those kind of stand out to you, and why, I suppose?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really difficult. I mean, the situation we have now is deeply concerning. That's all I can say. And literally, it's almost a case of every single day you're looking at the media to kind of find out has something new happened. So it's hard to kind of pull one out. Marks and Spencer's is interesting, and so is
Hmm.
Jaguar Land Rover, I think, because two of them very similar techniques, social engineering in order to get in there. But I think, and also the fact that it's the attackers, from what we know, are native grown. They are young people. I mean, with Marks and Spencers, you have four people arrested,
Right.
and they're English from the UK. Three young men and a young woman. I think the woman is 20. The others are the young men are like 17, and I think it's 18 or 19. So that's
Mm.
really concerning. Um, that I think that's interesting there. The other thing I think that's interesting about M&S is obviously like the scale of it, the repercussions. Around that time we had the Co-op targeted, we had Harrods targeted as well, some other retailers in different countries targeted. The and just the effect of on really our country, what were the repercussions in terms of food. If you think about some of the islands in Scotland, the Outer Hebrides, that was particularly hard for them because they were running low on stocks on
Mm.
food. So I think that's a really interesting one. The other interesting thing about M&S is the fact that we have some customers who are suing M&S. They've clubbed together. Last time I looked, I think there are about 1,000 of them, but they've
Okay.
clubbed together to go and sue M&S for not keeping their data secure. I think that's a really interesting kind of evolution, if you want to call it
Mm.
that. I think it's particularly interesting because in cybersecurity, we know that we can't keep data or systems secure 100%. It's impossible. The only way that you
Hmm.
can have that is if you're unplugged to a network.
Yeah.
So there is no such thing as 100% security. It's about cyber resilience. So the fact that M&S is being sued for that is an interesting development. We'll see how far they get.
Mm.
Um, Obviously, they have got to keep their data, customer data, secure in accordance with regulations like the GDPR and also the Data Protection Act. And then also, I think that's really interesting. I think the other thing that I think is interesting when it comes to Jaguar Land Rover and M&S, the other thing is just that the period of time, how long it went on.
Right.
And some people will say that M&S were great in terms of the communication, owning the narrative. As a customer of M&S, I would actually disagree because I think I only got one email from them. So I found that quite disappointing. I
Hmm.
think these hacks are interesting in terms of owning the narrative and who is stepping up to own the narrative. So if you think about what is being said to you as a customer and what is being said to the media, you'll find that some of them are keeping quiet, more quiet than others, and others
Right.
are, like I said, owning the narrative and being more transparent.
Yeah.
So it's tough because certainly dealing with it, you don't know what's happened, and you're trying to ascertain that, and you're dealing with regulators because you have to comply with the regulations and get information back to them, and then try and secure your system and make sure that no more happens. When it comes to Jaguar Land Rover, I think it's interesting because it's the second attack in less than 6 months.
Mm.
So again, with both of those companies, Tata Consultancy Services are the company responsible for certainly the IT, and I am presuming the security as well. But I find that interesting that maybe more hasn't been made of that. Again, with Jaguar Land Rover, the other thing is the fact that we've had the government kind of step in.
Yeah.
They've from a small business perspective or supply chain perspective, the supply chain has been deeply affected. So worrying for these small businesses, part of the supply chain, um, where their businesses might go under as a result of their client having this cyber attack. So really worrying. The fact that staff haven't been able to work. Some of those staff are on zero hours contracts. So that means that if they're not in, they're not working, and that's really horrible for those families. And it
Mm,
wasn't just a case of days, it was weeks. So the fact that both of them have lost, I mean, I think M&S were losing about 42 million pounds per week. Jaguar Land Rover were losing about 50 million pounds per week. So yeah, over a billion in in lost revenue, certainly for
mm,
Jaguar Land Rover. The fact that the government have stepped in with a backed loan, I don't think that's interesting. In some ways, it's good, but I think it sends a very poor message out because although it's not a bailout in terms of positioning, it can be considered almost, or some people think of it like that. And
mm,
that's not responsible. We need these companies to be stepping up. It is their responsibility. They cannot outsource that to another company. It's their responsibility. And also the fact that Jaguar Land Rover were negotiating insurance, quite a bit has been made about that. And that also kind of lends people to believe that, well, if they have insurance, they're okay. It doesn't. You're still responsible legally for protecting your customers' data
yeah.
and your systems. But it gives the impression that, well, so long as I've got insurance, I'm okay. That's not the case. If you have insurance and you meet the criteria in accordance with the terms that you've signed, you may reduce the amount of money that you are losing, but that's all. It doesn't mean to say
Yeah.
that you're not going to be fined for not protecting the data. So I think those are interesting things, just from
Mm,
the top of my head when you look at those, but both of those attacks and picking one above the other is really hard because I have the luxury, I don't want to say that, but I have the luxury of picking two high profile attacks that
yes. Yeah.
are very in quick succession.
Mm, mm. There are so many similarities between what you've been saying there and the world of sort of occupational, excuse me, health and safety.
Um,
You know, that kind of over reliance or feeling as if insurance is going to cover everything. And as you say, it might cover some, but it's not going to cover all of your costs, and it might not cover you at all if you haven't done what you said you were going
yeah,
to do.
exactly.
Um, this kind of it won't happen to us philosophy.
Yeah.
Not to say that either of those companies, you know, weren't doing all they could have done. I've got no idea because I'm not an expert, but yeah, there's so many similarities, and that's kind of why I was keen to get you on, as well as it being obviously very, very topical. Let's think about that sort of "it won't happen to us" attitude.
Yeah.
What would be some of the kind of early warning signs that an organization's defenses are maybe more fragile than they would hope?
Uh, I don't know. I mean, that's a really good question. I mean, like, if we're talking about like what can an organization do in order to better secure themselves. You want to be
Hmm.
doing business more securely and you need to be able to secure yourself. I think really the first thing I always say is you really prepare for it to happen. You've
Yeah.
got to expect it to happen. And then there's so much talk about, you talk about the positivity bias. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen to us. You've got to expect that it will happen. And I think all of these attacks that have been happening recently and that are constantly in media, whether it's M&S or the Co-op or Harrods or Jaguar Land Rover or the Kiddo Nursery, and there are far, far more coming. Um, you have to expect that it's going to happen. It is a case of if it's going to happen, not when. So you need to make a plan. You need to get your stakeholders, your executives, your heads of important people in your organization, and that can vary depending on the size of your organization together. And you need to create a plan. What's going to happen. When this happens, what do we do? And you need to think about your minimal viable company. So what can you do in order to get your company back in business within the next few hours, within the next few days, within the next few weeks? And you need to rehearse that. You need to rehearse that like you would do a fire drill.
Hmm.
So if you think about fire drills, I mean, how often are they done? Certainly when you've got a new person joining, they need to know about it. If you've got a visitor coming into the office, and so on, but they're done regularly, so people know exactly what to do. The
Mhm.
same thing needs to be be applied with your cybersecurity response plan. You've got to practice it, you've got to rehearse it, you've got to know exactly what to do. And you can rehearse different kind of scenarios, like say, for example, ransomware or another type of attack, phishing, for example. So all of those scams. So you need to do that. The um, the other thing that you need to do is really, I would say, is know your assets. You've got to know your environment and you've got to know your devices. You've got to um, a lot of people don't. This is the thing. It's just like it sounds really obvious. Like what tech are you using in your organization? But a lot of companies don't. So map out that environment and know what your assets are. You've got to look at identity because right now what we're seeing is we're seeing more attacks happening because hackers, I'm going to call them hackers, are
Mhm.
logging in rather than hacking in. So they're getting your passwords, they're getting your credentials. They're tricking people, like I said earlier, with through social engineering, like calling an IT help desk or calling a customer support or whatever. They are going in that way. So you really need to make sure that you're using things like multi-factor authentication, ideally phishing resistant multi-factor authentication, because that's going to help you or help your staff not be tricked. And yeah, making sure that your permissions are adequate, so has everybody got the right permissions? Can your receptionist log into your HR, like HR, that you don't want that. So you've
Yeah,
got to
yeah,
make
yeah.
sure that is all right. So what else do you need to do? You've got to train your staff. So a lot of the time people will train their staff, but the training that they offer is inadequate. So
Mm.
it might be more compliance training that they offer. That might be done once a year. And usually it's not role specific. So you need to make it role specific. So it relates to them and you need to make it adaptive. And again, you need to be doing that regularly so that the muscle memory is there. And it needs to be more, I would say, I mean, adaptive and interactive. I remember doing training. Actually, I worked as an MD at a company. If you look at my LinkedIn, then you'll find out which Fortune 500 company it was, but an
Mhm.
absolutely massive one. And the training that they did there was absolutely horrific, I would say. It's good that they did it. I mean, they wouldn't enable you to work unless you did do that training, so they would lock you out of your system,
Yeah,
um, which I don't agree with at all. You want to make sure that your training is helpful. So, say, for example, in this particular case, you didn't know kind of if you answered the question wrong, you just failed and you were locked out of
right.
your system. So, in theory, I definitely didn't do this, but you could get somebody else to do that for you if you if you failed it. You had no kind of education. Well, why is that? Why is that wrong? Help me to get the right answer. It was just wrong. So you need to make sure that your staff are learning. Well, why is it wrong? And you need to make sure that you've got training that is adaptive. So it's just like as the techniques adapt, then they are aware of those techniques adapting. And you need to make it relatable, not just in terms of their roles that they perform at the organization. So if you've got a roaming sales force, for example, then their requirements are going to be different to if you've got somebody who is in the office every single day. And on that note, you are going to find that those who are working in a hybrid manner or in a mobile manner or permanently remote, then their view of security and their security habits are far more lax than those in the office. Those in the office, it's much easier to secure that environment, and two, also they're consciously more aware of security than when they're at home,
Yeah,
which I think is really interesting. So yeah, you need to empower your people because if you don't do that, then they are kind of known as your weakest defense.
yeah.
But they can be your greatest asset and your greatest shield.
Mm.
You need to also understand your supply chain. So who are your partners? Because supply chain attacks are again another weak link when it comes to when it comes to you facing a cyber attack or a data breach. So you need to know your suppliers. You need to ideally like know their security as well. Now, for larger organizations, they do have they do ask you to fill out forms and things like that and tell them how secure you are. Some of them will even test you.
Hmm.
So the bigger ones, if I think of some of the banks, then they would actually come and test your security and make sure that you are, sufficient. But you can do that. You can actually get, I mean, like if anyone who wants to speak to me about this, I'll direct them to a particular tool whereby you can map the security of your third parties. So you can ascertain actually they're not very secure. They're low, and that's a problem to us because you can actually see their security as a hacker would do from the outside. I think that's
All right.
really helpful because then that helps in terms of your liability.
Hmm.
So it's not just a case of you and your organization, it's everyone that you're attached to. And then obviously like for them that goes further. It's a chain, like who are they working with? So what you find is hackers can get in through a weak link,
Yeah.
and they can work their way up. So it could be farther along down the line, the link that they are kind of working their way to.
Hmm.
Uh, so those are good things that you can do. I mean, there's a variety of different software that you can use. It really depends on your organization. It's not a case of um, use this tool. It really depends on what your budget is, your security, your posture. So where are you now? What have you
Hmm.
done? Your risk appetite as well. Obviously your budget. Yeah, and the size of your organization. So
Yeah.
those things all kind of matter.
Hmm. Pardon the quick interruption. We'll get you right back to the interview shortly. You're invited to join me at Risk Europe on the 12th and 13th of November at the Excel Centre in London. I'll be there doing live podcast interviews, hosting some seminars on stage, and talking to people on our stand. Your ticket is totally free, and there's a link in the notes where you can sign up and join us in November for this really exciting risk management related event. Here's the founder and event director, Nick James, with a few words on what you can expect. Nick, why did you launch the Risk series of events and what gap are you trying to fill?
So when we launched some 4 years ago, because we're now in year four and it's grown year on year, when we launched, we realized that lots of risk domains were operating in silos, but risks didn't respect those silos.
Mm.
And there was this strong movement to try and break them down. So I come back to our strapline: risk is everyone's business. And if you are a chief privacy officer, you probably need to know a little bit about financial crime and KYC. If you are a financial crime professional, you probably need to know about cybersecurity. You probably need to know about HR risks. You probably need, if you're in HR, you undoubtedly need to know about health and safety risks. You undoubtedly need to know about how do you protect your facilities and your personnel. So risk doesn't respect silos. And again, right back to the strapline, risk is everyone's business.
So do join Nick and I on the 12th and 13th of November at Risk Europe at the Excel Centre in London. You can find all the details on where to get your free ticket in the show notes. Now, let's get back to the interview. All makes sense, and so many, again, analogies between the world of cyber and sort of occupational safety. Just based on what you were just talking about, Jane, there's a quick question in the chat
Hmm.
from Travis saying, do you have any recommendations on vendor verification software layers, products like F-Sure? I've never heard of F-Sure, but you may have done.
I mean, yeah, I have heard of F-Secure. So vendor product.
Vendor verification software layers, which I assume is tying into the supply chain question.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you go onto my my website, and again, I'm happy to have a conversation. But if you actually, yeah, in fact, if you want that for vendor verification, just to ascertain how secure they are, then come and have a chat with me. I would recommend. I work so the majority of the work that I do is as a. I'm going to use this word because I don't like using it. And I always say that. I always pre-frame it with I don't like using this word. I work as an influencer, so
Mm.
I'm a brand ambassador, as well as being an advisor. But I work as a brand ambassador for certain companies. So certain big companies like Microsoft or MasterCard or Intel or BT Technology. So lots of different companies like that. But one of the companies that I work with is MasterCard, and MasterCard has a company called Cybermonks. And what they do through me is they provide it's a low cost tool. It's a great tool. Um, and that will allow you to actually look at your certainly your suppliers, your vendors, your partners, and ascertain, well, how secure are they?
Hmm.
So
Fantastic.
that's really good. It's on my website. But come and have a chat with me because with that I can give you a far deeper kind of view of it, so you can actually look at, well, how can I set this up? But it's such a great product. And it's yeah, I think it's really reasonably priced, and you've got the power of MasterCard behind you, which is
Hmm.
absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Um,
Great. Thank you very much for that. And thanks for the question, Travis, as well. Um, so yeah, lots and lots of parallels, as I said, and I think what strikes me is that you've got to have this technical knowledge, but actually a lot of the success here seems to be on the human side of things. It's the decision making, the culture,
yeah.
the communication. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, I mean, look, I think it's the more technical we get, and we're getting more technical, obviously, like with AI
Hmm.
already. I mean, AI has been around for like 75 years, but it's like we're all in the AI era now.
Hmm.
Yeah, the more technical it becomes, the more human you have to become. And we talk about having humans in the loop. So you can let um, these technical tools do a lot of the heavy lifting. These AI tools do a lot of the heavy lifting, but you need humans in the loop. You need them to be checking because they make mistakes. They
Yeah.
hallucinate. They don't get it right the whole time. And yeah, but if you let them do the heavy lifting, then you can do more for less, and also you can do things faster. And right now, when it comes to hackers, it's the speed and scale that is really concerning. I mean, in terms of, I'll give you an example of that. In terms of like profiling a company or a person to target, that used to take about 40 hours, not that long ago.
Right.
So you would have a look for their weaknesses, what was available on online about them. And now it takes less than a minute. So literally, you can set AI on onto that. Um, yeah.
Well,
Just the speed, and also with some of these, depending on your organization as well. It used to take days or hours, and maybe days to actually get in to an organization and have a look. And also, a lot of hackers would go in and lie dormant for a while. And now what we're seeing is we're seeing them go in and get out as fast as possible. They're not lying dormant at all. They're executing, and they can be in
mm,
and out within like 10 to 15 minutes. Or
mm,
it could be even like far less than that. Not just minutes, it could be seconds. They could be in and out within seconds because the tools that are available to them. So we have things like polymorphic attacks, whereby the malware is changing to evade detection.
right.
So it's just like in the past, like tools could pick up on these types of attacks, but they can't. Not if they're constantly changing. Now we do have tools that are available that can adapt and can do a better job. Threat detection tools like I'm not talking like traditional threat detection tools or legacy ones, but ones that are leveraging AI in order to detect these attacks. But that's why when we talk about people, if an attack has been missed, you need people to be on it. You need them to be trained. That doesn't feel right. Pause. Don't do it. Or I've done that. I need to inform someone that I've done that right away and not be scared. So it
Yeah.
is a case of like making sure that the environments, from a leadership perspective, you're creating this psychological safe environments. So, people do know what to do. They're empowered and they're feeling confident. They're not feeling frightened and scared and like, oh my God, I've just done that. Or what's going to happen? My boss is going to find out. I'm going to be sacked. I'm not going to say anything. Or shit, I've got this happening. And, or the other thing that we're seeing so many things, so many different types of attacks happening. I mean, I talked about logging in. Logging into a computer is more common than hacking in,
Hmm.
like doing the technical stuff. So the social engineering and everything like that. We're seeing, I mean, Joe Tidy, the BBC correspondent on cybersecurity, a lot of the journalists, and particularly say they've got their favorite journalists. So Joe's a bit of a favorite. So a lot of them will communicate with him, we've done this is happening. So he might get a heads up, probably about the same time a company does. And anyway, for him, he was offered, I think, a 15% of the ransom if he handed over his credentials so that the hackers could get into the BBC. So we had an IT worker in Brazil being charged when the company he worked at was hacked, and so the hackers aren't just kind of tricking tricking people on IT help desks or customer support or whatever. They're also going out to staff to try and recruit them, offering them a slice of slice of the pie, a piece of the whatever the saying is, um, for actually helping them to get in.
Wow.
So you can imagine and the rewards are so high when it comes to
Mm.
ransomware. The rewards are so high. I mean, the average ransom ransom is 4 million. I think I can't remember if it's like US dollars or pounds, but it's around about four million.
Mm.
So when they can do this and they can use AI at scale, volume, velocity, and then it's the rewards are so high for them and the risk is low because although it's encouraging to find out that we have arrested 4 youths for the M&S attack, a lot of the time they get away with that.
Mm.
So, and they're coming from all over the world. We don't know where they are. Some can be harbored. There's a lot of collaboration between the different groups. So you have I talk about like 3 different types of hacking groups. You've got criminals, you've got nation states, and then you've got hacktivists. So criminals are the most popular. They're the
Hmm.
most common. They're in it for the money. Um, Nation states, by and large, you've got Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. Most of them, apart from North Korea, are in it really to disrupt. So
Yeah.
to either it could be economically to steal and to get intelligence or IP. China has done a lot of that, but then we're seeing them kind of like switch their tactics. So the majority can be doing that, but also what we're seeing more is them working to weaken democracy.
Mm.
So, say with the kiddo nursery, there are people in the community in cyber who actually believe that it wasn't a case of hack criminals wanting the payoff. It was actually really to frighten us and to kind of again, it's just another let's weaken democracy. Let's frighten the people of the UK. Um, and then of course you've got your hacktivists who are out there they're all about their cause. But what we're seeing with these different groups, they're collaborating and they're upskilling. So the nation states they've got more money, they're more technically savvy, but they're upskilling the other groups. So sometimes you don't know who it is. Well, it looks like it's a nation state, or it's very, very hard to attribute who is behind it, which groups are behind it, if there's a collaboration going, let alone actually like prosecute.
Mm,
So it's a
mm,
really difficult environment. And say, when we're talking about ransomware, one of the first things that they will do, hackers, they'll go in and they'll try and find your insurance documents. So how much, have you got insurance? And then they will lower their fee based on your insurance document once you've got it. But we're also seeing them not just get in and out quickly, like locking you out of your system and extracting data, but we're also seeing them target your customers. This happened with a kiddo nursery. They were actually contacting parents, asking the parents to put pressure on the nursery in order to pay the ransom. But we've also
wow.
got another case that is happening right now with Salesforce, whereby it's the same group, I think, that was behind JLR. They've said that Salesforce has been breached. Salesforce is saying that they haven't been breached. They're saying that they've got data on a whole string of companies. I mean, loads of them, and they're going to release the data. I think it might be by the 10th of October, unless they're paid. Now, Salesforce is saying it's not happened, it's not a breach. And but what they're doing now is they are going out to their network and they are saying, we will pay you $10 in Bitcoin if you approach the executives to put pressure on them to pay the ransom.
Mm, mm,
And then we'll pay more if you are, if you get more creative with how you're approaching the execs. So that is, it's a new. And then sometimes what we see is they'll actually go to the regulator. They'll threaten you with, if you don't pay, we'll go to your regulator and inform on you there. So they're getting very kind of creative. And these types of groups that are exist are varied, from youngsters, like we've seen with M&S and
mhm.
Co-op and Jaguar Land Rover, homegrown natives, English speaking youths, um, in it for like the kudos, isn't it funny, as well as the money. But we're also seeing, so you've got different levels, and you've got
Right.
some that are run like as performance businesses. They have contracts, they have offices, they have bonuses for hitting target, um, holidays, etc., etc. And then you have those that are trafficked as well. So unfortunately, in Southeast Asia, there are hundreds of thousands of people who have gone to, from all over the world, actually gone to get a job, what they think is a job doing something legitimate. And
Mm,
they've been tricked into, they've been kidnapped basically, and they are in these awful places, these effectively jails, where they are beaten, they're not earning any money, and some die trying to escape. Some are ransomed out to their families, pay this ransom to get your kid back. But they are having to go out and perform these scams. So it's a really horrible
yeah.
time for us. And it is going to get worse. This is the thing with AI. We've got quantum around the corner, or already.
Yeah.
It's gonna get so much more worse. It's
Mm,
it's really concerning. So it can't be a case of, oh, it's not going to happen to me. You have to prepare for it, and
yeah.
now is the time to act.
Mm. Yeah, I saw a figure that said that by 2029, the projected cost of cybercrime was going to be $15 trillion or something
Yeah,
like that. So,
right.
is it some of the things you just mentioned, like AI and quantum, that are driving that because the effects are kind of being exponentially increased thanks to that sort of leveraging of technology? Is that kind of the main driver for that, or are there some other things?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's like when economies tank, then crime goes up. So you have some struggling economies. If you think of the UK, you think of, you think of
Yeah.
Europe. Was talking to someone in New Zealand the other day. They said that they're not in a great place. Obviously, you've got the US, so that can also have have a bearing on the amount of crime that is performed. But it's all of those things. We have a perfect storm right now. So
Mm.
people struggling, and then the ease, the fact that you don't have to be technical anymore in order to do these things. Hacking has been democratized, so you have hacking as a service, kind of all flavors of that, crime as a service. So you don't have to be technical if you've got the appetite, to do it, that risk appetite to do it. Then you can. And a lot of the gangs, the criminal gangs that aren't there trafficking humans, with drugs as well, they're all getting into it because
Mm.
there's lots of money to be made. So they're all connected. They're all connected.
Yeah. Yeah. It's quite worrying, isn't it, when you start to think about it. So
Yeah,
if you were advising a CEO,
yeah.
or a board that's not yet prioritizing cybersecurity, and this could be beneficial. This answer could be beneficial to people that are joining us today.
Mm.
What would you say to get their attention? What have you found that moves the needle in terms of getting people to take this a bit more seriously?
I think if you can, like, show them just how easy, like give them a demo. That's the easiest
Mm.
way to do it, because words can be a bit cheap. If the best way is if you can actually show them, well, this is how easy it is. I mean, we've not even talked about deep fakes,
No,
so
yeah,
deep fakes are the scam, that the this isn't you. So when the technology is evolving so quick, literally it wasn't too long ago, like months ago. Every single week it's changing, every single day it's changing. Where you could literally put your hand up or turn your head and you could see that it wasn't the person that they were pretending to be. And this is how there was a an attack, a cyber attack, a hack in Hong Kong, whereby a financial someone in the finance team was tricked into sending, was it 25 million US dollars or some round about that amount of money, transferring it. He thought he was on a call with a whole variety of people from his office, and he
yeah.
wasn't. They
Mm.
were they were fakes. They weren't themselves. And so, but the technology has evolved so fast now that there is no way to determine really, is that who I'm speaking to?
Mm.
So you need to have things like, if you can show things like that to them, then that helps. Voice can be, if your voice is out on the internet, your image is out on the internet, even like a photo. A photo can
Hmm.
be put into a video. The technology exists. Um, you I personally think the best way is to show them. I
Mm.
know years ago, I think it was Deloitte, spent millions creating this executive kind of little short movie. And the security team at, if it was Deloitte, I think it was Deloitte, actually said that that was the fastest way to actually get the execs to do something about it, to show them the
Right.
little movie,
Yeah.
3 minutes, kind of like hacking movie, to make it real, to them. So I think if you can get someone in who can actually do this and show you, well, this is just how quickly it can be done, then that tends to sink in more than just talking about it.
Yeah.
And so as much as possible with anything, like, show rather than tell. Um, and yeah, I mean, like, if you can't, then present the numbers. I mean,
Mm.
get your information there, and just show what the environment is like right now, and try and make it relatable for them. So yeah, step into their world, use the language that they're using.
Hmm.
Um, you've got to influence them. So it's a
Yeah.
case of, like, knowing what matters to them, and then kind of feeding that back,
Yeah.
selling that to them, making it
Yeah.
relatable, and selling them on that.
Yeah, yeah. Good advice to get anyone to do anything really, but definitely relevant here for sure.
Yeah.
Um, Thanks, Jane. That's been really insightful and a bit worrying in a sense as well. But we won't dwell too much on the worrying side of things.
No. Mm.
But I really appreciate your time.
Yeah. And
Got
it's really,
anything?
Christian, it's really important. There needs to be enough pressure to take action. But then
Yes.
it's like, okay, am I right to be concerned about this? Yeah, absolutely. But you can be empowered. So now it's time to do something.
Mm,
So make sure that you are understanding, so increase your cyber literacy. And there's so much available, like on my YouTube I do these shorts, so like very short like YouTube videos to try and educate uh, non-technical audiences about this, so
yeah.
you're learn about it. You can't, I mean, I did this interview, will be coming out with a Microsoft exec, and he was talking about this, about outsourcing. A lot of the problem is that executives think they can outsource it. You can't outsource it. It's your problem to solve.
Mm,
Uh, it's your business. It's your business. So there was it KL? I want to say KLR, but that might not be the name of the company. But it was a logistics company, a transport company. I think their business was like running for hundreds of years. 140 years or 160 years or something like that, a long time anyway. And they got a ransomware attack. I think the hackers wanted something like 4 million. They couldn't pay it. They just didn't have that money.
yeah.
So the company went under. So
Yeah.
it's a case of do what you need to do, be empowered to do that, but just take action. Don't be so frightened. And this is like the kind of fine line that we have to play, as professionals out there. Some people will say, don't self-hard, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Don't do the whole fear thing. No, we need to. We
Mm,
need to. This is time. It is a case of it is going to happen to you. So you need to take action, but be empowered to take that action, as opposed to so frightened that you just stick your head, in the sand and understand the risk, but do nothing about it. I mean, I think that's the worst thing that can happen. It's like you're aware of it and understand it, and maybe even think that it's going to happen, but you don't take action. It's like
yeah.
tomorrow, I'll do that tomorrow. So
Mm,
it's and again, this is a job for us as cybersecurity professionals, is to make it as easy as possible, for companies of all sizes to take action. Whether you're a micro business, I'm a micro business,
mm,
and how difficult it is to actually get technical support for you as a tiny business.
mm,
Most businesses won't want to work with you unless you're like 25 people and above. They won't want to work for you with you. You're too much of a pain in the backside. You don't give them enough money. You ask too many questions. You want too much hand holding. It's far more profitable for them to go and work with a company that's got 25 or more employees. And that's a problem, because we're all part of a supply chain.
yeah.
Uh, so but there is advice out there for you.
Hmm.
The National Cybersecurity Centre has a board toolkit. I've looked at it. I kind of think they could make it much more digestible, because there's so much information there. It's like, let's
Yeah.
make it really, really easy for you. But that's a really good place to start, and it's all free. It's
Mm,
all free. I mean, on my YouTube channel, that's all free as well.
yeah.
But and there, like I said, there are sometimes it's difficult when there's too much information, because you're overwhelmed and you don't know where to go. So it's again like too much information, not enough. I think it would be really helpful from a national perspective, wherever you are in the world, to have a base. Where do I go to get this information? Oh, I know, I can go to this page and it's all there. That would be
Yeah.
so helpful for so
Mm,
many businesses.
yeah. Yeah. It would be definitely. Well, yeah. Thank you so much, Jane. Where can people follow you? Where can people learn more, and particularly if they are interested to get you in to come and do a talk, I guess, because you do a lot of that.
Yes. So LinkedIn is a really good place. So it's just my name, Jane Frankland, or my website. So my website is jane-frankland.com. and you'll find because I write very regularly. I post regularly. I try to post every day, but it doesn't always happen. I try to write a thought leadership blog at least once every 2 weeks, if not once a week. Again, just like challenging my reader to think in a different way. And my all of the work that I do is typically for leader level as
Yep.
opposed to techies. I don't get into like the technical spiel. It's for leader levels because that's the majority of my network and that's where we need to do more work. So LinkedIn or YouTube, Jane Frankland TV. So it's just a TV on that.
Perfect. That's great. Well, thanks so much, Jane. And thanks to you for joining Jane and I this week. And we look forward to seeing you again on another session soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Thanks, Ian. Bye.
Thanks for joining us on the Safety and Risk Success podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit follow and do share on social media. Does anyone you know spring to mind as a great guest, even yourself? If so, please contact us on podcast@slipsafety.co.uk. See you next week for another episode.